GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides in food and their impact on health. This article provides a summary of its contents in the following manner. 1. Introduction. 2. GMOs. 3. Herbicides and pesticides. 4. Impact on health. 5. Minimizing health risks. 6. Conclusion. 1. Introduction. GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, are living organisms whose genetic material has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally through mating or natural recombination. In agriculture, genetically modified crops are engineered to have desirable traits such as resistance to pests, herbicides, or better yield. Herbicides are chemicals used to kill or control unwanted plants, commonly referred to as weeds, in agricultural fields or other areas. Pesticides, on the other hand, are chemicals used to control or kill pests such as insects, rodents, and fungi that can damage crops and reduce yield. These chemicals are commonly used in agriculture to protect crops and improve production. The controversy surrounding the use of GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides in food arises from concerns about their potential impact on human health and the environment. While proponents of GMOs argue that they can help to increase food production and reduce the use of harmful pesticides, opponents raise concerns about the potential long-term effects of consuming genetically modified foods and the use of herbicides and pesticides in food production. Critics argue that GMOs have not been sufficiently tested for long-term safety and could potentially have negative effects on human health, such as causing allergic reactions, altering gut microbiota, and contributing to the development of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Additionally, there are concerns about the impact of GMOs on the environment, such as cross-pollination with non-GMO crops and the creation of superweeds that are resistant to herbicides. Similarly, there are concerns about the health risks associated with the use of herbicides and pesticides in food production. Studies have linked exposure to these chemicals to a range of health problems, including cancer, birth defects, neurological disorders, and reproductive problems. Critics argue that these chemicals may also harm beneficial insects, such as bees, and contribute to environmental degradation. The controversy surrounding the use of GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides in food highlights the need for careful consideration of their potential risks and benefits, as well as increased transparency and regulation in the food production industry. 2. GMOs. Genetic modification is a process in which the genetic material of an organism is altered in a way that does not occur naturally through mating or natural recombination. In crop genetic modification, scientists identify specific genes that control desirable traits, such as resistance to pests or tolerance to herbicides, and transfer those genes into the genetic makeup of a crop. There are several techniques used for crop genetic modification, including the use of bacteria to transfer genetic material, the use of viruses to carry genetic material, and the use of a gene gun to shoot genetic material into plant cells. Once the genetic material is transferred, scientists can use selection techniques to identify and isolate the plants with the desired traits. The result of genetic modification in crops is a genetically modified organism, or GMO. Genetically modified crops can have a range of desirable traits, such as increased resistance to pests, drought, or herbicides, improved yield, or enhanced nutritional value. The use of GMOs in agriculture has been controversial, with concerns about the potential impact on human health and the environment. However, proponents argue that GMOs can help to increase food production and reduce the use of harmful pesticides. Proponents of GMOs argue that genetically modified crops have several potential benefits for agriculture and food production, including increased yield. Genetic modification can help crops produce higher yields, which can help to increase food production and improve food security. Resistance to pests and diseases. By incorporating genes from other organisms, scientists can create crops that are resistant to pests and diseases, reducing the need for harmful pesticides and herbicides. Tolerance to environmental stress. Genetic modification can help crops tolerate environmental stresses such as drought or high salinity, making them more resilient to climate change. Enhance nutritional value. Genetic modification can be used to increase the nutritional content of crops, such as adding vitamins or minerals to staple crops like rice or wheat. Reduced food waste. Crops can be genetically modified to have a longer shelf life, reducing food waste and increasing access to fresh produce in areas with limited access to refrigeration. Overall, proponents argue that genetic modification can help to improve crop yields, reduce the use of harmful pesticides and herbicides, and address global food insecurity by increasing access to nutritious food. However, it's important to note that the potential benefits of GMOs are still subject to debate and ongoing research. There are several concerns regarding the potential impact of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, on human health, including allergic reactions. The introduction of genes from one organism into another can potentially create new allergens that were not present in the original crop, increasing the risk of allergic reactions in humans. Antibiotic resistance. Some GMOs are engineered with genes that confer resistance to antibiotics, which could potentially contribute to the development of antibiotic-resistant bacteria in humans. Toxicity. There are concerns that some GMOs may be toxic to humans, particularly if they produce new proteins that are harmful. Unknown long-term effects. There is a lack of long-term studies on the safety of GMOs, which has raised concerns about potential health risks that may not be immediately apparent. Gene flow and environmental impact. There are concerns that GMOs may crossbreed with non-GMO crops, potentially creating unintended environmental effects. While there is ongoing debate regarding the safety of GMOs for human consumption, many experts agree that more research is needed to fully understand the potential risks and benefits of GMOs. In the meantime, some countries have implemented strict regulations around the use and labeling of GMOs in food production. 3. Herbicides and pesticides. Herbicides and pesticides are chemicals used in agriculture to control or eliminate unwanted plants, herbicides, and pests, pesticides, that can damage crops and reduce yields. Herbicides are chemicals designed to kill or control the growth of unwanted plants, also known as weeds. Herbicides are typically applied directly to the leaves or stems of the plants and work by interfering with their metabolic processes, leading to death or stunted growth. Pesticides, on the other hand, are chemicals designed to control or eliminate a wide range of pests, including insects, fungi, and rodents. Pesticides can be applied directly to the plant, the soil, or the surrounding environment to kill or repel pests. While herbicides and pesticides can be effective in controlling pests and weeds, they can also have negative impacts on the environment and human health. Pesticides and herbicides can leach into groundwater and soil, contaminating nearby water sources and leading to environmental degradation. In addition, exposure to these chemicals can have negative effects on human health, including increased risk of cancer, reproductive problems, and neurological disorders. As a result, there is ongoing debate over the use of herbicides and pesticides in agriculture, with some advocating for more environmentally friendly and sustainable approaches to pest and weed control. There are a variety of chemicals used in agriculture, including herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers. Some of the most commonly used chemicals include glyphosate. This herbicide is widely used to control weeds in a variety of crops, including corn, soybeans, and wheat. Chlorpyrifos. This pesticide is used to control a range of insects and pests, including termites, mosquitoes, and fruit flies. Atrazine. This herbicide is used primarily to control weeds in corn and sorghum crops. Neonicotinoid. These pesticides are used to control a range of insects, including aphids and beetles, and are commonly used on crops such as corn and soybeans. Dicamba. This herbicide is used to control weeds in soybean and cotton crops. Nitrogen fertilizers. These fertilizers are commonly used to improve plant growth and crop yields, and are applied to a range of crops, including corn, wheat, and rice. While these chemicals can be effective in controlling pests and weeds and improving crop yields, they also have the potential to harm human health and the environment. As a result, there is ongoing debate over the use of these chemicals in agriculture, and efforts are being made to develop more sustainable and environmentally friendly farming practices. Exposure to herbicides and pesticides can have negative effects on human health, including increased risk of cancer. Several herbicides and pesticides have been linked to increased risk of cancer, including glyphosate, atrazine, and chlorpyrifos. Reproductive problems. Exposure to certain herbicides and pesticides has been linked to reproductive problems in both men and women, including decreased fertility, birth defects, and miscarriages. Neurological disorders. Exposure to some pesticides has been linked to an increased risk of neurological disorders, including Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. Respiratory problems. Pesticides and herbicides can cause respiratory problems, including asthma and other lung diseases. Skin irritation and rashes. Exposure to pesticides and herbicides can cause skin irritation and rashes, particularly if the chemicals are not handled properly. Developmental problems. Exposure to pesticides and herbicides plus during pregnancy can increase the risk of developmental problems in children, including cognitive and behavioral problems. Exposure to herbicides and pesticides can have negative effects on human health, and there is ongoing debate over the safety of these chemicals in agriculture. As a result, efforts are being made to develop more sustainable and environmentally friendly farming practices that minimize the use of these chemicals and reduce the risks to human health. 4. Impact on health. There have been numerous studies conducted on the impact of GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides on human health. Here are a few examples. GMOs. The safety of GMOs has been extensively studied, and most scientific organizations, including the World Health Organization and the National Academy of Sciences, have found that GMOs are safe for human consumption. However, there is ongoing debate over the long-term effects of GMOs on human health and the environment, and more research is needed to fully understand the potential risks. Herbicides. Studies have linked exposure to herbicides, including glyphosate and atrazine, to an increased risk of cancer, reproductive problems, and neurological disorders. For example, a 2019 study published in the journal Environmental Health found that exposure to glyphosate was associated with an increased risk of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Pesticides. Pesticides have also been linked to negative health effects, including an increased risk of cancer, reproductive problems, and developmental disorders. For example, a 2018 study published in the journal Environmental Health Perspectives found that prenatal exposure to pesticides was associated with an increased risk of autism spectrum disorder. Overall, while there is ongoing debate over the safety of GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides, many studies have linked exposure to these chemicals to negative health effects. More research is needed to fully understand the risks associated with these chemicals and to develop more sustainable and environmentally friendly farming practices. Consuming food with GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides can potentially have negative health effects. Here are a few potential health risks. Allergic reactions. Genetically modified foods can potentially contain new proteins that may cause allergic reactions in some people. Increased exposure to toxins. Consuming foods that have been treated with herbicides and pesticides can increase exposure to these potentially harmful chemicals. Antibiotic resistance. Some genetically modified crops have been engineered to be resistant to antibiotics, which can contribute to the development of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Increased risk of cancer. As mentioned earlier, exposure to certain herbicides and pesticides has been linked to an increased risk of cancer, and consuming foods that have been treated with these chemicals may also increase the risk. Negative impact on gut bacteria. There is some evidence to suggest that exposure to pesticides and herbicides may have negative effects on the diversity and abundance of beneficial gut bacteria, which can contribute to a range of health problems. While the risks associated with consuming food with GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides are still being studied, it is generally recommended to limit exposure to these chemicals as much as possible by choosing organic foods and avoiding heavily processed foods that may contain GMOs or high levels of pesticides and herbicides. Several factors can affect the impact of GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides on health, including dose. The amount of exposure to these chemicals can significantly affect the impact on health. In general, higher doses are more likely to cause negative health effects. Duration of exposure. The longer the exposure to these chemicals, the greater the potential health risks. For example, chronic exposure to pesticides has been linked to an increased risk of certain types of cancer. Individual susceptibility. Some people may be more susceptible to the negative health effects of these chemicals than others. For example, people with weakened immune systems or pre-existing health conditions may be more vulnerable. Route of exposure. The way in which these chemicals are ingested, inhaled, or absorbed can also affect their impact on health. For example, inhalation of pesticides can have different effects on health than ingestion. Type of chemical. Different chemicals have different properties and can affect health in different ways. For example, some pesticides have been linked to an increased risk of cancer, while others have been linked to reproductive problems. Interaction with other chemicals. Exposure to multiple chemicals at the same time can have additive or synergistic effects on health, which means that the impact of each chemical may be greater when combined. Overall, the impact of GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides on health can be influenced by a range of factors, and it is important to consider these factors when assessing the potential risks of these chemicals. 5. Minimizing health risks. There are several food safety practices that can help minimize exposure to GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides. Choose organic. Organic foods are grown without the use of synthetic pesticides and herbicides, and GMOs are not allowed in organic agriculture. Choosing organic fruits, vegetables, and other foods can help reduce exposure to these chemicals. Wash fruits and vegetables. Washing fruits and vegetables can help remove residues of pesticides and herbicides that may be present on the surface. It is recommended to wash produce thoroughly under running water before eating or cooking. Avoid processed foods. Processed foods may contain high levels of ingredients derived from GMO crops, as well as added sugars and artificial additives. Choosing whole, unprocessed foods can help minimize exposure to these chemicals. Read labels. Pay attention to food labels and choose products that are labeled as non-GMO or organic. This can help ensure that the food you are buying does not contain GMOs or has been grown using synthetic pesticides and herbicides. Support local farmers. Buying locally grown produce from small-scale farmers can help support sustainable agriculture practices that minimize the use of synthetic pesticides and herbicides. Cook at home. Cooking at home using whole, unprocessed ingredients can help you control the quality of the food you eat and avoid exposure to GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides. By following these food safety practices, you can help minimize your exposure to GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides and promote a healthier and more sustainable food system. When it comes to choosing between organic or non-GMO foods, it ultimately comes down to personal preference and priorities. Here are some key differences between the two. Organic foods are grown without the use of synthetic pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. Do not contain GMOs. Are often more expensive than conventionally grown foods. May have a shorter shelf life due to the absence of preservatives. Are subject to strict regulations and certification processes. Non-GMO foods do not contain genetically modified organisms. May have been grown using synthetic pesticides and herbicides. May be cheaper than organic foods. May contain preservatives or other additives. Are not subject to as strict regulations as organic foods. Choosing organic or non-GMO foods may also depend on individual health concerns and environmental beliefs. Some people may choose organic foods to reduce their exposure to synthetic chemicals, while others may choose non-GMO foods to avoid consuming genetically modified organisms. Ultimately, the most important thing is to consume a healthy and balanced diet that includes a variety of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein sources, regardless of whether they are organic or non-GMO. Proper washing and preparation of fruits and vegetables is important to remove any potential contaminants such as dirt, bacteria, pesticides, and other chemicals. Here are some tips to properly wash and prepare fruits and vegetables. Wash your hands. Before handling fruits and vegetables, wash your hands thoroughly with soap and warm water to prevent any potential cross-contamination. Rinse under running water. Rinse your fruits and vegetables under cool running water to remove any visible dirt and debris. Use a produce brush. Use a produce brush to scrub firm-skinned fruits and vegetables, such as potatoes, carrots, and apples, to remove any dirt and debris. Soak in vinegar. Soaking fruits and vegetables in a solution of water and vinegar, 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water, for 15 to 20 minutes can help remove any pesticides and bacteria that may be present. Dry with a clean towel. After washing, pat fruits and vegetables dry with a clean towel or paper towel to remove any excess water. Cut away damaged or bruised areas. Cut away any damaged or bruised areas of fruits and vegetables, as bacteria can grow in these areas. Cook thoroughly. Cooking fruits and vegetables can also help reduce the risk of contamination. Make sure to cook them thoroughly, especially meat and poultry, to kill any potential bacteria. Properly washing and preparing fruits and vegetables can help reduce the risk of foodborne illnesses and exposure to potentially harmful chemicals. 6. Conclusion. Here are the key points discussed in this article about GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides in food and their impact on health. GMOs are crops that have been genetically modified to improve their yield, resistance to pests, and other desirable traits. Herbicides and pesticides are chemicals used in agriculture to control weeds and pests that can damage crops. There is controversy surrounding the use of GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides in food due to potential health risks associated with their consumption and exposure. While GMOs may have potential benefits, concerns include the possibility of allergic reactions, antibiotic resistance, and environmental impact. Exposure to herbicides and pesticides has been linked to potential health risks, including cancer, reproductive problems, and neurological damage. Proper washing and preparation of fruits and vegetables can help reduce exposure to contaminants, while choosing organic or non-GMO foods may depend on individual preferences and priorities. When it comes to choosing between organic or non-GMO foods, it is important to consume a healthy and balanced diet that includes a variety of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein sources. Proper washing and preparation of fruits and vegetables can help reduce the risk of foodborne illnesses and exposure to potentially harmful chemicals. Awareness and informed decision-making are important when it comes to GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides in food and their impact on health. It is important for individuals to educate themselves about the potential risks and benefits of consuming these substances, and to make informed decisions based on their own values and priorities. By being aware of the potential health risks associated with GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides, individuals can take steps to minimize their exposure and make choices that align with their beliefs and preferences. This may include choosing organic or non-GMO foods, properly washing and preparing fruits and vegetables, and advocating for stricter regulations on the use of these substances in agriculture. Informed decision-making also involves considering the potential benefits of GMOs, such as increased food production and enhanced nutritional value, and weighing these benefits against the potential risks. It is important to consider the source of information and to seek out credible sources, such as peer-reviewed scientific studies and government agencies, when making decisions about food choices. Overall, awareness and informed decision-making are crucial for individuals to make choices that promote their health and align with their values and beliefs. In conclusion, the use of GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides in food production is a controversial issue with potential health risks and benefits. While GMOs have the potential to increase food production and enhance nutritional value, concerns about their safety include the risk of allergic reactions, antibiotic resistance, and environmental impact. Exposure to herbicides and pesticides has been linked to potential health risks, including cancer, reproductive problems, and neurological damage. Proper washing and preparation of fruits and vegetables can help reduce exposure to contaminants, while choosing organic or non-GMO foods may depend on individual preferences and priorities. Awareness and informed decision-making are crucial for individuals to make choices that promote their health and align with their values and beliefs. By educating themselves about the potential risks and benefits of consuming GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides, individuals can make informed decisions that promote their health and well-being. It is important to consider the source of information and to seek out credible sources when making decisions about food choices. Ultimately, it is important to consume a healthy and balanced diet that includes a variety of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean protein sources. Thanks for watching.